Dear students, now I'm starting the explanation of the chapter 3, The Prince in Trouble. All of you know that in the last chapter, Edward Tudor and Tom Canty exchanged their dresses. Tom Canty put on the prince's beautiful silk dress, his little red hat, and also his jewels. And Edward Tudor, the prince, dressed himself in Tom's dirty rags. Edward wanted to go out of the palace. He wanted to play like other boys. Now, the Prince Edward was looking like a beggar in rags. No one could recognize him as a prince due to his dirty dress. Yes, class, take out page chapter 3. The Prince in Trouble. The wrong side of the gate. Please listen carefully. Sit quietly. I will ask some questions in the end. Take that, shouted the soldier, hitting Edward again. The prince fell down in the mud. He picked himself up and threw himself at the soldier. You will die for this, he shouted. The soldier stepped inside the gates again and shut them with a bang. Laughing and shouting, the crowd chased the prince through the streets, further and further away from the palace. At first, the prince shouted angrily at them, "Stop that at once! If you don't stop, my father, the king, will send you to prison." The people thought that he was very funny. They laughed and laughed. At last, the prince was too tired to shout at them, and they became tired of chasing him and left him alone. He looked around him. He did not know where he was. Although he was terribly tired, he was afraid to lie down. He did not feel safe. He had never been really alone in his life. Then he saw a great building a long way away. "I know that place," he said to himself. "It is Christ Church. It was a church long ago, and then my father made it into a home for poor children. There they are well looked after, and they are taught to read and write. I will go there. They will be kind to me, because my father was good to them." Yes, students, as soon as Edward reached at the gates of the palace, the soldier misbehaved with him. He shouted at the prince and forcefully the soldier threw Edward outside the palace gate. Now Edward was out of the palace. The soldier hit him again, and Edward fell down in the mud. Then the soldier closed the gate with a bang, with a loud sound, and walked inside the palace. Edward was so much angry at the soldier. The crowd, which was outside the palace, laughed and shouted at Edward Tudor. They chased the prince. Chased means they ran after him through the streets. Edward ran more and more away from the palace. At first, Edward shouted at them in anger and threatened them that his father, King Henry, would punish them and would send them in the prison. People thought that the boy is joking, as he was wearing rags and didn't look like a prince. They laughed at him more. But eventually they lost interest and left. Edward was exhausted from running. He was lost. He was confused, but he hoped that he would find help. When he realized that he was near Christ Church, a church which was turned into a charitable orphanage. Yes, class, what is an orphanage? An orphanage is a place where children without parents are cared for. A child whose parents are dead, called orphan. He has no home, no parents, so he has to live in an orphanage. So the prince was happy that the people in this church would recognize him and would be kind to him because his father, King Henry, was also kind to them. Yes, class, look at the book, The Pupils of Christ Church. Slowly, on his tired feet, the young prince went towards the great building. Soon he saw a crowd of school boys. They were all dressed in the same blue clothes with small round black hats on their heads. They were playing happily together in the playground. The prince went up to the nearest boy. Boy, please tell your teacher that Prince Edward is here and would like to speak to him. The boy stared at him in surprise. Why has Prince Edward sent a beggar to be his messenger? I'm not a beggar, and I'm not a messenger. I'm Prince Edward, and the king, my father, built your school. Now fetch your teacher quickly before I get angry. Did you hear that? Shouted the schoolboy to his friends. The beggar boy says he's a prince. Come on, let's have some fun. They seized the prince with their strong little hands and pulled him towards a big stone bath in the corner of the playground. The bath was full of water for horses to drink. Sometimes the boys sailed their toy boats on it. Now they threw the prince in the water. When he tried to get out, they pushed him in again. After a few minutes of this, a bell rang. Dinner time, the boys shouted. They ran indoors and left the prince alone. My father was kind to those boys, said the prince as he climbed out of the water. He gave them food to eat and clothes to wear, but he forgot one thing. He did not teach them to be kind and good to people who are poorer than themselves. When I am king, I will change all that. Yes, dear students, after being carried far away from the palace by the laughing crowd of people, Prince Edward Tudor found himself in front of Christ Church. There were a bunch of school boys who were playing in front of the church. Edward ordered one of the boys to tell his teacher that Prince Edward wanted to meet him. Noting Edward's clothes, the boys teased him, laughing and asking if he was a beggar or messenger of the prince. Obviously, all they saw in front of them was a beggar in rags. That's why they laughed and made fun of him. Edward got mad and he threatened them. He said angrily to the boys that he was not a beggar. He was the prince and his father was the king of England. He also told the boys that his father, King Henry, built their school. But the boys wanted to have some fun. They grabbed Edward Tudor and threw him in the stone bath, which was in the corner of the playground. The bath was full of water for horses to drink. As he wanted to come out of the stone bath, they pushed him inside the water again. After a while, the bell rang for the dinner, and the naughty boys left the prince alone. Edward thought that his father, King Henry, was very kind to those boys, but they were not kind to others. He thought that nobody taught them to care about the poor or needy people. He thought that when he would be the King of England, he would change all that. Yes, students, I will explain the remaining part of this chapter tomorrow in the next lecture. Thank you.